Hi, Dr. Phil Phlox, also known as John Billingsley, speaking. I am the president of the board of the Hollywood Food Coalition. We serve terrific multi-course meals to the unhoused and to those in need 7 nights a week. We assist as many as 100 nonprofits with their food needs, buttressing extraordinary social service programs. We work with community partners to address issues of food insecurity here in SoCal. We do lots of other great stuff, but how much time do we have? If you're in LA, come and volunteer with us at hofoco.org/volunteer, and any Federation credits you can spare go a long way.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the place for amazing pin collectibles with over 300 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month.
Stay tuned for a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com just for Discovering Trek listeners. Fansets. Our pins have character.
Borg. The mirror universe. Oh boy. Crazy drunk sex. Yeah. It's all in the day in the life on the USS Cerritos. Jump in the turbo lift and hit that down button, folks. My name is Dan Davidson, and we are Discovering Trek Lower Decks. Thanks so much for joining us, and welcome to Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe Companion, presented by Fansets. Episode 8, I, Excretus, gave us a great callback from TAS to TNG and all kinds of other Trek history, while making it a special episode in itself by showing yet another great Star Trek storyline, teamwork, which is something that we don't have here. I'm just kidding, because speaking of teamwork, I just happen to have the very best team here at Podfleet Command, helping me each and every week with this here podcast. Welcome back, Sara, Kasey, and Bill. A great episode this week with good laughs, good Easter eggs, and a good, solid Star Trek message. Sara, you're looking fantastic. How are you?
Oh my God. Great. Better now.
Well, can't get any better than when you're perfect. Anyway, and then we're going to go to the other side of the spectrum. Kasey, what's up?
Wow.
Excellent. Okay, and Bill, how are you? It's good to see you too.
You know, teamwork makes the dream work, Dan, and that's why we're all here.
Absolutely. It is a dream being here, and it's a nightmare from which I will never wake.
Ragtag
but that's okay.
group today. We're on it. This is a good Patreon episode.
It is great to see all of you in all seriousness. It's always fun to sit here and talk about Lower Decks. This week's episode was really great. I really cannot wait to start talking about it. I was very, very pleasantly surprised. Before we start talking about this episode, though, Bill, why don't you tell our listeners how they can get in touch with us to give us their thoughts on I, Excretus.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Well, I'm sure you do, Dan, but listeners, we definitely want to hear from you. And the best way to do that is to get yourself the Trek Geeks mobile app for your iOS or your Android device. Download it and tap the More button for a whole bunch of ways to get in touch with us. And while you're at it, you can check out our brand new app-exclusive shows that you won't be able to get anywhere else. Head on over to trekgeeks.com/app to get all the details. Plus, you can join the most positive Star Trek Facebook group there is. It's Camp Kittimer, and it's the official Facebook group of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. It's really easy to join. Just head on over to Facebook, search for Camp Kittimer, answer a few questions that really are so simple that Dan could answer them, and we'll let you write in for all the fun and positive discussion. Truly simple. And a big thank you to our wonderful admins, Haley, Jackie, and Fark, for the amazing job they do running the camp. Lord knows if it were left to Dan and me, it would be a mess. Please remember, though, that any comments or messages you leave us in any of these places, Dan, could be used in a future episode.
It's very possible. I would not be surprised. Anyway.
Black alert. Black alert.
Before we start our discussion, we want to warn our listeners that this episode of Discovering Trek Lower Decks does contain spoilers. So if you haven't watched Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 8, stop listening right now, head on over to Paramount Plus and check out the episode, then come back on over to Discovering Trek. Failure to do that will put you at risk to find out plot developments and character details for I, Excretus. So, boys and girls, another great episode, Lower Decks, episode 8. We're almost at the end of the season, which is very sad, but we're not going to dwell on that right now. We're going to talk about a great episode. I, Excretus, had no idea why the episode was called that until, of course, we found out later on in the episode. I thought the episode was great callbacks, a lot of Star Trek history. And Sarah, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about what you loved about this episode, because I know you loved it. You loved it, didn't you? You did.
Well, I can't not say no now. That's a lot of pressure. I thought it was great. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I love the concept of having this event where they not only are tested in pods, which I think I would love to have seen on any of the series now that this is a thing, but also, just that perfect reaction of, hey, lower deckers, you get to be in charge, and vice versa. It was great. It was good humor, good fun. Good fun times.
Definitely agree. Kasey, I'm pretty sure you're in the same boat as Sarah, correct?
No.
Really?
I'm not. This episode felt a little filler to me. All the simulations, I enjoyed seeing them, but it seemed like if you had studied Starfleet history and the according logs for certain adventures, you could easily pass all of these simulations. And there's a tonal difference that I think we're being set up for the end of this season that's coming up. And so for me, there's kind of this abrupt shift.
Wow. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's good. It's good. I'm glad that we have differing opinions. And now, Bill, I want to hear what you thought about the episode.
Actually, Sarah's waving her arms massively. So, Sarah,
I thought there was a fly bugging around in her office. Sarah, what's going on?
You think I live in filth? Is that what you're saying? I have a question. Kasey, you made a comment, and I wanted to maybe possibly call you out, but probably not. I just have a question. Do we know how long it takes to go through Starfleet Academy?
4 years, I think.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah, 4 years. They don't have time to learn everything about everything that happened, Kasey. Come on. That's all I had to say.
Slam the book shut.
Okay, thank you, Miss PhD.
Well, back to me.
You're right, though. But really, let's hear from Bill.
Oh, thank you. I forgot I was here. I thought this was a fun episode. I think Kasey's point is a valid one. I think that there is a little bit of a filler quality to this episode, although I think it's probably one of the most creative filler episodes we've ever seen in Star Trek. I think it's incredibly enjoyable because it puts us in familiar situations that we have, as fans, have always said, oh, I know what I'd do for that. And it gives us the ability to see that through those characters' eyes and then see how it just goes horribly wrong, which I think is really where the fun is, Dan.
I totally agree. And I will say that I agree with you 100%, Bill. And I agree with Kasey to a point also. I loved this episode. I love the episode for the reasons that Kasey kind of thought it was filler. I love the idea of having these holopods, that we had all of these different callbacks to all kinds of things from all kinds of series. And I thought it really worked. If it was a filler episode, it was the best filler episode I think I might have seen in Star Trek, the way that they were able to do it. I'm going to talk about one thing right now that I liked least out of this episode, and I know that our good friend Aaron Harvey might not like this, what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway at my own peril. I loved the callbacks. I did not like the callback to the TAS alien race of, I think it was Bem in the animated series, and I think he was a Pandronian, if I remember correctly. I didn't think having that character in this episode who was running the tests, I thought that fell really flat. I thought that was the weakest part of the episode, and I really didn't care for any of the scenes that she was in, to be brutally honest. I just thought it was kind of, I don't know if forced is the right word, Sarah, but I'm going to go with that. I thought that they could have put anybody else in that and it would have worked better. I think they put that in there just to have a callback to TAS. It just didn't work for me.
I don't even know who you're talking about. The one that's got the 3 parts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The green girl.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never watched the animated series, so for me it was just a character that I didn't fall in love with and didn't really, it was fine.
That's cool. All right, Bill, let me ask you this. Did the character in the animated series, was it able to separate like she was? I don't remember that.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
I don't remember that part of I don't remember that episode very well.
I actually really liked that inclusion because it's a nod to other things that we know have been in the Star Trek universe for a while. Is it a callback? Absolutely. But I think in the scope of this episode, this is really the only one this season where this works for me.
Really?
And they gave this character kind of an attitude, which I think was a little different than what we'd expect. So there's a little bit of that mischievousness, which I would anticipate seeing. Mischievousness or whatever.
Mischievous.
Mischievosity.
Oh.
And thank you. It's creating new words. It's a Dan Davidson specialty on this show. But I thought it really worked for me because it introduced somebody that was outside of the Starfleet construct, and you didn't necessarily know what their motivations were because it's been 50 years since we've seen this alien. So for me, I thought it worked okay.
And then she had bad ideas that were going to try to, usurp the USS Cerritos. I said usurp. I did. I really did. I don't know if I said it the right way, but
no, you didn't.
Probably screwed it up. Kasey, what do you think?
Yeah, that does not go on pancakes. If you think about it, this is like a clip show. That's how I kept taking it. And so part of it was like, okay, what is the point of each one of these challenges? And to see what's going on, and the familiarity thing was fine, but I kept coming back to myself asking the questions like, where is this leading to? Because there has to be a point to what's going on here. And then we come to where it's, the one side gets to see what the other side actually goes through, vice versa. And is there more camaraderie going on there? Or is it, like, hey, you guys have the easiest gig in the world. We've got all the stress up here. So, when you're going through, it's like, and really, does all of Starfleet have this caste system on each ship?
Very good point. Very good point, because I actually said, and Bill, I'm gonna ask what you think. I was really surprised in this episode. I mean, we've kind of seen it a little bit in Lower Decks through the season and 3 quarters that we've had. There's a caste system on these ships. The lower deckers are looked upon with disdain, and I might even use the term discrimination in the way that they're treated by senior staff. And on the other side of the coin, lower deckers really don't have good things to say about a lot of the senior staff most of the time. And it's really surprising that something like that, Bill, exists in Starfleet, but it seems to, at least on the Cerritos.
I don't think it's a surprise at all. We've seen this all throughout Star Trek. There have always been enlisted personnel and officers, and that's really what we're talking about here. Maybe on a slightly different term between upper and lower deck, but Starfleet and other quasi-military organizations and actual military organizations have always had a structure or a system of some kind that always favors the people with rank, thus, the phrase rank hath its privileges, and kind of taking the people who don't have that rank and they get to do all the menial tasks.
Oh, I don't disagree with that, but I don't remember seeing such disdain. I mean, the senior crew is like, oh, lower deckers, and they give him this kind of like shrug of the shoulder. That's something that I just wouldn't expect to see.
I think that's
maybe
because
it's just me.
I think it's because every series is always focused on the bridge crew.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
The lower deckers or other people have always been the guy behind the transporter console.
True.
Or Chief O'Brien, who became an upper decker.
That's true. Sarah, what do you think?
Think about the TNG episode with the same name, Lower Decks.
Lower Decks.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a taste of
definite
it, but
caste
you
system.
see Riker, talking about the one guy who's trying to impress him, and it's just like,
Yep.
I think if we saw more of that in a lot of those series, it would make more sense, because I think it's there. They just didn't touch on it.
Well, and I think part of the problem here is that Gene never necessarily intended for that kind of treatment to be in the forefront. He couldn't have envisioned Lower Decks happening because, Star Trek was canceled in 1969. And then Next Gen happened, and unfortunately Gene passed, during its production. But at some point, I think this was bound to happen. The longer the universe was built out and we kept adding on more stories and more characters.
No. I can definitely appreciate and understand what you're saying with that. So I can have a different thought process on it. I just thought when I saw the way that they were treating and how disgusted the bridge crew felt that they were going to have to do lower deck stuff. It was like, wow. I mean, I understand. Yes, rank has its privileges and this, that, and the other thing, but it was a little bit shocking to me. But let's talk about some of the things that were really cool to see in this episode, whether it was filler or not. Sinner repent.
That was so
Love
awesome.
mankind.
Yeah.
I mean, so many cool Borg kids in the birthing chambers. Just all of these callbacks were so good. Spectre of the Gun, Western Towns, of course, the Mirror Universe, which is one of my favorites. And what I thought was very smart on the writers, the way that the writers did this is when they were showing the different holopod adventures that these people could be going on, they were names of episodes from Star Trek history, which I thought was really cool that they were naming them what we're all familiar with. I just thought it was really great. Crystalline Entities, of course, was also a great callback to TNG. So those are all things that I really liked in the episode, whether it was filler or not. But I love the idea. We've seen holodecks, we've seen holosuites, and now we have holopods, Bill.
How long before Quark tries to corner the market on those things? They're going to be popping up at every Starfleet transit point and public transporter that there is, all sponsored by Quark.
Folks, we want to take a moment, as we do each and every week, to thank Fansets for being our exclusive sponsor here on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
As Discovering Trek celebrates its 4th birthday on this very day that we are recording this episode, we want to thank Fansets for being our exclusive sponsor for every single episode.
Yeah, that's right. And as October 1st is right around the corner, be sure to head on over to fansets.com for the latest Star Trek releases. Xindi Commander Dolim, Dr. Gillian Taylor from Star Trek IV, the one with the whales, Admiral James T. Kirk in his monster maroon uniform, and the latest Women of Trek release, the one and only, finally, B'Elanna Torres.
And as always, listeners, you get to save money each and every week just for being a Discovering Trek Lower Decks listener. Head on over to fansets.com, put a whole bunch of stuff in your cart, like all those pins that Dan mentioned, and more pins, and even more pins. And at checkout, enter the special discount code word Lower Decks. That's LOWERDECKS in all capital letters with no spaces. That's going to get you 10% off your entire order. And of course, don't forget that U.S. customers will get free shipping if you spend $30 or more.
Fansets. Our pins have character, and we thank our friends at Fansets for being the exclusive sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
A question. Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born, I have awaited a question.
So I have a question for the dais. And because I know which one I would select and how it would turn out. So as a lower decker, you're put into a holopod. Which simulation are you going to call up, and how will you do? And Dan, I'm going to start with you.
The game. I'll play it for hours, hours and hours. And I'll just sit there with that goofy look on my face.
Some might say you do that anyway. Casey, what about you?
Hey, brother, with my hair going right now, I guess I'm just playing guitar in the transporter set, eating Fig Newtons with the rest of the big-eared dudes.
We reach.
There you go.
Sarah, what about you? Which one would you select and how would you do?
If I get to choose anything I want that wasn't even referenced in this, I would totally go for Rascals, but I'd never turn back to an adult.
Okay, Bill, let's hear it.
Mine would be like Rutherford's in a way. I would select something TOS movie era. And although his selection was hilarious to me because of the beat before the Enterprise explodes, I would go back and rescue George and Gracie and go to modern or 1986 San Francisco.
Yeah.
And be that fish out of water, because I think that would be fun. And I'm sure I would do much more poorly than our intrepid crew did.
Does anybody here want to take on the Tuvix?
Oh, boy. I'm not going there.
I do.
I'll airlock him.
I do.
I'll airlock him.
I got
I
it.
just want his uniform.
I fixed the whole thing for that episode. Ready? Tuvix. You put him back in the transporter to retain his pattern, okay? You rematerialize him separated as Tuvok and Neelix. Then, with the pattern still in the buffer, you rematerialize again with Tuvix intact. End of Who Cares episode. Got it. Thank you. No more discussion of that episode.
Way too much time thinking about that, man.
Way too much.
It's the only thing I thought about for this episode before we talked.
Yeah, we can tell.
In fairness, he's had a lot of time to be thinking this week.
Hey, brother.
So, one of the things that was great was the Borg sequence with Boimler. Of course, Boimler saves the day, which was great. I'm going to ask a question. I did not watch the end credits. I'm sorry. I was in the middle of doing a couple things. Was that Alice? Did she show up to do the voice of the Borg Queen?
Yes,
Yeah.
The first thing she said, I'm like, oh my God, that sounds like Alice. That's awesome that they brought her back for this. That is very exciting.
So cool.
I was almost hoping it would be Annie Wershing.
That would have been cool too.
But the fact they got Alice Krieger to do it is 100 times better. It's awesome.
That's fantastic. I loved seeing the Borg. I like seeing assimilated Boimler. And I got to say, I know that some people may disagree with me. The very last line of the episode as the ship was going off into the stars, I thought was hilarious, where he quoted Picard from Family and said they took everything I was. I thought that I was laughing out loud when that happened. I thought that was hysterical. Anyone else?
I got nothing. So here's what happened. So you told me about that scene. You told me your reaction,
Yeah.
and then I watched it, and I was completely underwhelmed.
I know you were, and I was like, that's because you're a jerk.
It
was unexpected. I thought it was great. I loved
didn't
it.
catch it. Half the stuff I'm like gone over my
We're
head.
glad you enjoyed it, Dan.
Thank
We
you.
are.
Casey.
But come
I
on,
appreciate
Mirror Boimler, when he pulls the Donald Sutherland Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
that was good.
That was the stuff, baby.
That was great. There was a lot of good. That was really good. I forgot about that. That was awesome.
Throwback to Worf when he broke his back.
Yep.
Oh, that was amazing. I love that situation.
Time
Broke
of
my
life.
back on a peanut.
Peanut.
We could go on for a long, long time. I think about this episode with all of the different things. We very barely scratched the surface on the whole Spectre the gun sets. I thought that was great. Just so many good things in this episode, and I can agree with Kasey. And it was kind of a filler episode, but it was a filler episode that was fun. So yeah, episode 8, good, liked it. I think everybody. Kasey, were you a thumbs midway or a thumbs up? What do you think? Come on,
Midway. I'm changing it. It's a clip show, not a filler show. But however
So like
you
Lower Deck
think
Shades
about
of
it in your
Grey.
mind.
kind of.
I think it's much better than Shades of Grey, though. I mean, Shades of Grey is not a terrible episode.
No,
Let's just be straight up
not at all.
about that.
Yep.
Its worst sin is that it's a clip show and a strike shortened season. And this one actually has an actual plot around it, which is actually kind of entertaining. So for me, it works.
And as I said at the beginning of the show, the whole idea of this episode is really a great Star Trek message, and that's teamwork. And I think that it works, the way that they do this and get together, lower deckers and bridge crew to work together to thwart. I don't even remember what her name was. I'm sorry. I apologize. The green girl who separates into 3 different pieces. But it is an episode about teamwork, and I think that's the important message that everybody got.
I think you're right. It is an episode.
Okay.
So, with that being said, I'm not even going to give my closing comments. I'm just going to ask Kasey, what the hell's going on next week on Lower Decks, brother? See, you're not ready.
Well,
are you?
Dan.
You don't have it.
Well, Dan, since I'm still proofing your copy, next week Boimler tries to find a bridge buddy while the USS Cerritos crew has downtime during a long warp trip. It's episode 9 of Lower Decks, Ouige Douge, also known as 3 Ships. And we will be here to talk all about it next week. Until then, remember that you can subscribe to Discovering Trek by searching for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or by downloading the Trek Geeks Podcast Network app.
Don't forget, you also can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Bonus. Get access to the unedited audio of all our podcasts and a lot of other perks.
We want to take a moment to recognize the following amazing producers of Discovering Trek, and we are truly so grateful for their support. Mike Bovia, Chaz Bradshaw, Kyle Castillo, Peter Craig, Andy Davenport, Craig Ewing, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Kimberly Hartman, David Hood, Julianne Jordan, Leonel Marchand, Matt McGonigal, Jim McMahon, Darren Metcalf, Charlie Mulvey, Sean O'Halloran, Jamie Rogers, Casey Shafsky, Jim Stoffel, Chris Trabuzio, Ken Tripp, Christina Werther, and the lovely and talented Jess Vashon.
If you would like to support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam on over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks, where subscription levels start at $2 a month. $2. Such a deal. For even more great Star Trek discussion, we want everyone to check out the other member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, Rewind, Polytrek's 5-Year Mission, Deep Space Pride, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, Sci-Fi Sisters, and Trek Geeks, obviously. We're proud to welcome Drawn to Trek, Science Station 2, and With the First Link to our network family as the latest additions to the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. You can find all our podcasts, including where to listen, by visiting trekgeeks.com/listen. The Trek Geeks Podcast Network, no one talks Trek like we do.
I don't think anyone reads it as good as you do either, my friend.
I did half of that without even looking at the copy, actually.
So that's because you're brilliant. Brilliant.
That's because I've read it now like a dozen times.
Well, everyone, I want to thank you for joining us for our discussion on Lower Decks Episode 8, I Excretus. 2 episodes to go in the season, and from what Mike McMahon said on Star Trek Day, these last 2 episodes are going to be freaking epic. As always, I can't thank my amazing podcasting crew enough for another great discussion, so thank you, Bill, Sarah, and Kasey.
You're welcome.
Can't wait to sit down with you next week to talk all about Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 9, Wesh Doge. So until next week, never stop discovering.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.